In the previous section, Matthew and Emily's unexpected meeting ignited a love they couldn't explain. However, Emily never imagined that their love would face such great challenges, both from public opinion and societal prejudice. As their relationship deepened, Matthew had to confront difficulties he never thought he'd encounter. The big question remained, could their love survive not only the external obstacles, but also the internal ones they faced? Despite the temptations and difficulties, neither of them could deny the genuine feelings that had blossomed. Matthew and Emily were forced to face major decisions. Would they build a future together, or would they be swept away by the biases and barriers that seemed insurmountable? That afternoon, as Emily walked through the hotel, a chill ran down her spine. Since the beginning of the trip, people had been whispering about her, but now something felt different. The glances were more hostile, the expressions more venomous. Then, as she walked past the front desk, she overheard two women talking. "Have you seen the news?" "Yeah, it's a scandal." Emily furrowed her brows and pulled out her phone. She opened the browser, and as soon as she saw the headline, her blood ran cold. CEO Matthew Harris embroiled in a controversial affair with former housekeeping employee. She clicked the article, and the shock only deepened. According to sources from Insider, Emily Parker, once a housekeeper at Harris's hotel, had been brought to Paris on an extravagant trip and promoted under suspicious circumstances. The sources suggested that the young woman might be using her relationship with the CEO to advance her career. Emily's breath quickened. The article wasn't just gossip, it was a direct attack. Her phone buzzed. It was Harris. "Where are you?" She swallowed hard and replied, "At the front desk." A few minutes later, Matthew Harris appeared, but he wasn't smiling. He was holding his phone, and the anger on his face was evident. "I'm going to find out who did this," he said. Emily let out a dry laugh. "Do you really need to find out?" Matthew furrowed his brows. "What do you mean?" Emily crossed her arms. "The woman's name is in the article. It's Sophia Reed." Matthew closed his mouth. "I thought so too." Emily took a deep breath. "I knew people would gossip, but this is different." Matthew grabbed her hand. "I'll take care of it." She looked him straight in the eyes. "How?" He smiled faintly. "My way." That evening, Matthew Harris called a press conference at the hotel. When Emily walked into the room, she saw reporters surrounding her, flashes blinding her, cameras rolling. She had never felt so scared in her life, but then she saw Matthew on the stage, standing tall and unshaken. He held the microphone and began speaking. "I know there are a lot of people here because of the rumors about me and Emily Parker. So let me make one thing clear," Matthew said, and the room fell silent. Emily
Parker did not get promoted because of our relationship. She got promoted because of her undeniable talent and because she has proven time and time again that she deserves to be here. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, but Harris's gaze was steady, filled with conviction, with no hint of doubt. Harris's voice rang out with unwavering confidence, his words cutting through the tension in the room. "And for those who think this is some scandal," he continued, looking directly at the crowd, "I don't care." The reporters exchanged surprised glances. Matthew Harris stood tall on stage, his gaze steady and unwavering as he addressed the room. "I've never feared the public, and I won't start now," he declared. He turned to look at Emily, his eyes softening. "I've chosen to be with her, and I will not apologize for that." Emily's eyes welled up. Matthew had just put everything on the line for her, and in that moment, she realized that it didn't matter what they said or what they tried to do. They would face it all, together. When the press conference ended, Matthew walked over to her. "So, what do you think?" he asked, a small smile playing on his lips. Emily laughed, her heart racing. "You're crazy." He smiled back. "And yet you're still here." Emily reached up and placed her hand on his face, her voice steady and full of conviction. Forever. Without another word, ignoring the flashing lights and the onlookers, she kissed him. Because for the first time in her life, Emily knew she belonged there, and no one could take that away from her. Emily Parker had never imagined her life could change so quickly. Just weeks ago, she had been a hotel housekeeper, working day shifts and patiently taking night shifts to pay the bills. Now she was in Paris, wrapped in Matthew Harris's arms, her name appearing in headlines as the woman who had captured the heart of the billionaire CEO. What once felt like an impossible dream had now become her reality, and she had no regrets. The next morning, after the press conference had ended, Emily woke up to her phone ringing incessantly. Messages from Jessica, from the hotel staff, from unknown numbers. Some congratulated her, others attacked her, calling her an opportunist, claiming she'd just gotten lucky. But none of that mattered. What mattered was, for the first time, she didn't feel alone. When she went downstairs for breakfast, Emily found Matthew Harris already seated at their table as usual, but this time he seemed different, more relaxed. "Did you sleep well?" he asked as she sat down. Emily took a sip of coffee and smiled. "Better than the last few nights. I bet your name's all over the newspapers by now." Emily rolled her eyes. "You didn't have to do that press conference." Matthew tilted his head. "But I did." Emily sighed, taking a bite of her croissant. "You always like to make things more complicated, don't you?" Matthew chuckled. "Always." She shook her head and smiled, but her smile continued to grow.
Faded when she saw a familiar figure walk into the restaurant. Sophia Reed. The perfect blonde woman, as flawless as ever, but her gaze was colder than ever. She walked straight up to their table and stopped next to Harris. "Can we talk?" she asked. Matthew took a sip of coffee and raised an eyebrow. "If it's another one of your lectures, I'm not interested." Sophia Reed flashed a tight smile and turned to Emily. "It's not a lecture. I just want to clarify a few things." Emily crossed her arms. "Now you want to talk? After trying to ruin my reputation publicly?" Sophia Reed sighed. "Emily, you understand. What I did wasn't personal." Emily laughed, her tone skeptical. "Oh, really? Spreading lies about me to the world isn't a small thing?" Sophia Reed clenched her lips. "They're not lies. They're uncomfortable truths." Matthew leaned back in his chair. "Sophia Reed, if you have something to say, just say it." Sophia Reed took a deep breath and looked straight at Emily. "You've changed the rules of the game. The world doesn't take kindly to change, but even though you've won this battle, you need to understand that there will always be people trying to bring you down." Emily Parker kept her gaze steady. "So basically, you're warning me to be careful." Sophia Reed nodded. "And prepare for everything. What's happened now is just the beginning." Matthew Harris stood up, his voice strong and decisive. "Emily doesn't need to worry. She's not alone." Sophia Reed stared at him for a moment before stepping back, letting out a deep sigh. "Good luck to both of you," she said before walking away. Emily exhaled deeply, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Matthew reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Are you okay?" Emily looked at him and smiled. "I'm okay, because I know that no matter what happens, we'll face it together." Matthew squeezed her hand, and in that moment, Emily knew nothing could bring them down. The last day in Paris passed quickly. Emily and Matthew attended more events, met more people, and gradually she realized that she was no longer seen as an outsider. People were starting to respect her. That evening, Matthew took her to one of the city's most luxurious restaurants. The atmosphere was elegant, the food exquisite, but Emily's attention was entirely on the man sitting across from her. "What happens when we go back?"
she asked. Matthew picked up his wine glass and looked at her for a long moment before responding. Do you want to go back to the hotel? Emily hesitated. She'd worked hard for her place in the world, but now her life had changed. I love what I do, but I think I'm ready for something new. Matthew smiled. Then I have a proposal for you. Emily raised an eyebrow, curious. What's that? Matthew set his glass down and took Emily's hand in his. Work with me, not as a hotel employee, but as my partner. You have talent, Emily. We could create something together.
Are you serious? I've never said anything I don't truly mean. Emily took a deep breath. It was a big step, but looking into Harris's eyes, she knew the answer. I accept. Matthew smiled. Excellent decision. They clinked their glasses, and that night, Emily knew her life would never be the same again. The plane landed back in the city, and Emily took a deep breath as she stepped off the private jet. She had returned to reality, but her reality was now different. As they got into the car, Matthew took her hand. Are you ready to start this new chapter? Emily smiled. I've never felt more ready in my life. He pulled her into a deep kiss, and Emily knew that her fate wasn't just to clean hotel rooms anymore. Her destiny was with Matthew Harris. Emily Parker had never imagined her life could change so dramatically. From being a hardworking hotel maid to becoming a key player in the culinary world alongside one of the most powerful men in the industry, and more importantly, she'd never imagined falling in love with someone like Harris. Over the past few months, their relationship had grown stronger than ever. They worked together, traveled to international events, and created a creative project within the Harris Hotel empire. But above all, they had each other, and that was all she needed. Emily Parker felt the urge to do something. At least she thought so, because Matthew Harris always knew how to surprise her, and that night, he was about to prove just that. It was a special evening. Emily and Matthew were sitting in a luxurious seaside restaurant, one of the most beautiful places they had ever visited together. Soft lights illuminated their private table, and a warm breeze gently brushed against their skin. Emily looked at Harris, smiling. Why so quiet? She asked. He picked up his glass of wine and stared at her for a moment before giving a gentle smile. Maybe because I'm waiting for the right moment. Emily furrowed her brow. The right moment for what? Matthew shook his head. Just wait. Before she could ask anything else, a violinist entered the restaurant, playing a soft melody. The music was beautiful, romantic. Emily looked around, her heart beating faster. There was something different about tonight. Then Matthew took her hand. Parker. She turned, surprised to see his gaze more intense than ever. Do you remember the first time we met? Emily laughed. How could I forget? I was sleeping in your bathroom. Matthew smiled. And at that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Harris? He stood up, pulling out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Emily held her breath as all the guests in the restaurant went silent. Matthew kneeled before her. You challenged me from the very first day. You made me laugh when I thought I had forgotten what that felt like. You showed me that life is more than work and status. Emily felt her eyes fill with tears. I'm not an easy person, but if there's one thing I'm sure of. Matthew Harris looked at Emily Parker with loving eyes, holding her hand tightly and said, What I've learned since you came into my life is that I don't want a future without you. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful ring. Emily Parker, will you marry me? Tears fell down Emily's face, her heart pounding. The world seemed to spin, but amidst all the emotions, there was only one answer that felt right. I accept. Matthew smiled, slipping the ring onto her finger. He stood up, placing his hand on her face and kissed her, filled with emotion. The restaurant erupted in applause, but Emily only felt him and the love that had filled her heart. 2 months later,
Emily Parker walked down the aisle of a flower-filled garden, wearing a white gown, holding a bouquet of flowers, her hands trembling. The wedding was held outdoors in a private villa with a stunning view of the sea. The golden sun was setting on the horizon, creating a scene that looked like something out of a fairy tale. And at the end of the aisle, he was there. Harris, dressed in an elegant suit, with a gentle smile and eyes full of love. Emily felt tears fall before she even reached the altar. Each step she took was a reminder of the journey she had been through to get here, where she started, what she faced, and how, against all expectations, love had found its way to transform her. As she approached Harris, he took her hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." Emily smiled. "So, you're officially stuck with me for life?" Matthew Harris chuckled, squeezing her hand. "I couldn't be happier about that." The ceremony was emotional, with heartfelt vows and promises of eternal love. Finally, the officiant declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Matthew didn't wait another second. He embraced her and kissed her passionately. The guests applauded enthusiastically, tossing flower petals over them, and Emily knew that this moment would be etched in her memory forever. 2 weeks after their wedding, Emily Parker stood in the bedroom, staring at the pregnancy test. She blinked a few times. 2 lines. 2. Her heart raced. "Oh my God," she whispered. She was pregnant. A wave of mixed emotions, shock and joy, flooded through her. She and Matthew were about to have a child. When she heard the bedroom door open, she quickly turned around to find Matthew stepping inside. "Parker, you've got to see this. I just got an invitation for—" He paused when he saw her expression. He furrowed his brows. "What's wrong?" Emily took a deep breath, then grabbed the test and handed it to him. Matthew looked at the object in her hand, blinking a few times, then furrowing his brow, not understanding what was happening. But then his eyes widened. "Is this real?" Emily smiled. "Yes." A moment of silence passed. Then he walked over to her, gently cupping her face in his hands, and kissed her, filled with emotions that words couldn't capture.
Pulled away from her lips, there were tears in his eyes. "We're having a baby!" Emily smiled, feeling joy fill her heart. "We're going to have a baby, Harris." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, gently. "I love you." Emily Parker smiled, resting her head on Matthew Harris's chest. "I love you." Matthew held her tighter, savoring the full depth of love in that moment. And Emily knew this was just the beginning of a new adventure, a new chapter of love, growth, and happiness. At that moment, it wasn't just her and Matthew anymore. They were a family. If you were Matthew, what would you do when faced with this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story inspired you, don't forget to share it with your friends and family to spread the message of courage and love. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.